losing one's mind must be one of the most frightening things there is. To slowly lose all semblance of what made you the person you are. To know that what is beyond that gate is nothing more than a drooling figment of what came before. That is, if you realize it is because some insanity is so insidious you don't even know it. Featured in today's episode are films where one or more characters fly over the cuckoo's nest. A Friend Will Come Tonight isn't a porn film where some guy is visiting the home of his friend only to find out his hot girlfriend is there and looking for some fun. No. It's a very well done black and white movie from 1946 about a bunch of French World War II resistance fighters who take refuge from the Germans hunting them and their elusive leader the General Apostrophe in an insane asylum. The only problem for us viewers is that we weren't told who these people are, and so we are left figuring out who is mad and who is not. And this in a time where the world collectively got mad and all kinds of insane things happened that were never thought imaginable. And let's not mention the fact that this war, its atrocities, and the fact living in the skin of a nutjob would quickly turn any sane man or woman into a raving lunatic. And so we are guided through this film meeting quirky, weird and sometimes violent people and those who pretend to be them. Well, that is unless they are them in the guise of the Nazis. I think you get it by now what this movie plays with, and it's pretty great. Go watch this. It's old-timey, it's black and white. It's French and it's acted like they did back in the day, but it's pretty damn neat. Smash that. Dressed to Kill is a 1980s erotic thriller by Brian De Palma about a pretty decent-looking MILF who is looking for some adventure of the, let's say, romantic kind. She ventures out from her life with a boring husband to get some love from a stranger, and she gets it, but she gets more than she bargained for. Meanwhile, another woman gets accused of being a killer who slashes up women for some reason or the other. And this is roughly the premise of this excellently made film that will delve into the psychology of man and woman and the killer within. It features some extremely hot women, both in Angie Dickinson as well as Nancy Allen, who showed just enough to make any man or woman swoon. You'll dive head deep into a psychological thriller that deals with some very current day subject matter from the lens of the early 80s and late 70s. I'm sure many snowflakes would think this movie should be cancelled for the way they portray it, but I think it's a pretty neat movie, and with actors like Michael Caine in it you can't go wrong. My only gripe, which isn't really a big deal, is the way it's set up, making you follow one particular person and connecting with the character only to then move on. It's a bold movie and it feels as if it breaks the movie in two, but it works, making this film into something more unique than other films. Smash that. Exit is a quaint French psychological thriller from the year 2000 about a guy, Stanislas Dobzhnik, who has a strange obsession with the ailments of his mother. His father died when he was 7 and it's needless to say that he isn't really normal. He has frequent visits with his psychologist who feels that Stanislas was wrongly convicted for the gruesome murders of several women. During the course of the film we find out whether or not Stanislas' profile is wrong or if he was indeed the serial killer. Is the doctor on his side? Who are the women? And much more in this often complicated and hard to follow film. Movies like this need an edge, and you will not be surprised that there's a moment at the end of the film that there's a loud and obnoxious plot twist. The journey to the plot twist, however, isn't quite as interesting as you would expect. It does stuff, it goes places, but it all feels a bit try-hard, a bit overdone, a bit by the numbers and stealing from movies that did it better. This isn't Seven. This isn't a liar. This isn't The Usual Suspects. This isn't Saw. It's interesting, but in the end it just left me cold. The haha fooled you didn't I aspect didn't impress and felt like a cop-out. Maybe I missed things during the film that made this aha Earl of No more impactful, but I doubt it. Exit isn't exciting. It's merely okayish. Wink wink, nod nod. Check that. Glorious is a low-budget cosmic horror film with True Blood actor Ryan Quentin and the infamous J.K. Simmons, known from such movies as Whiplash, Spider-Man, Invincible and others. In Glorious, a visibly upset guy, played by Quentin, takes a break at a rest stop and quickly finds himself stuck within. As he does his deeds on the toilet, he is contacted by a voice coming from the next stall. That thundering voice, a hallmark of J.K. Simmons, starts asking the man for more and more strange requests. Slowly you'll realize what is going on in the film. It's too bad I can't speak a lot about what this is, since that's pretty much the only thing the movie has going for it. It uses the same neon purple aesthetic that has been popularized by media such as Stranger Things and the most recent Color Out of Space for films like this. And it all works. Up to a point. It combines horror and gore with humor and weaves some ethereal stuff in the mix for good measure. But in the long run, it's nothing more than an overly long episode of what could have been a modern Twilight Zone series, you know. The one that actually honors the Twilight Zone of the past and wasn't made by some racist like Jordan Peele who injects his bigotry in every single episode. Glorious is an enjoyable movie for how long it lasts, but unlike its namesake, it's far from glorious. That title is still given to the Nicolas Cage vehicles Mandy and Color Out of Space in my eyes. Check that. Husband is a quaint French movie about a young boy who is obsessed with the local hairdresser and ventures there almost daily to get his hair washed and cut. He doesn't only like the warm water on his hair or the scent of the perfumes, of course. No, he also enjoys being pampered by a divinely smelling woman with very big breasts bulging out of her clean white hairdresser's uniform. His fantasies abruptly end when the woman commits suicide, but that doesn't stop his fondness for hairdressers. His goal in life, to marry one, and thus he eventually meets Matilda, who has all the things he wants in a woman. And so we get a love story with a lot of French musings about women, their curves, love, and most of all sex. A lot of sex in a lot of places. And you might think, oh, it's a sex film. But I say, nay, this is very much a film about love and the love between a man and a woman. It's quite endearing were it not for a lingering fact that is also shown in the beginning of the movie. I will not say more about this because this film is an experience in itself. Much like life and love, a trip of a man falling in and out of love, searching for connection, for nourishment, for friendship and someone who takes care of him. But there are two sides to every coin and every person, and this, not only from the man's point of view, his wife's, the other patrons, city folk, kids. It all connects masterfully at the end. You'll be able to link scenes and speeches and say to yourself, goddamn, what a great film. Go watch it. Smash that. With a title like The Sadness, you would probably expect a film that deals with grief, with a lot of crying and drama, and you wouldn't be wrong per se, but oh boy, are you going to be wrong about the type of movie this is? The Sadness is a 2021 horror film the way only Asians can do it. Well, technically, since this film is pretty much based on the super violent, super gory crossed comics by Garth Ennis, drawn by Jason Burrows, published by Avatar Press. In that comic, and this movie, a mutated virus turns into a mysterious illness, turning humans into raving mad lunatics who wish nothing more than to exact perverse and violent acts on others. And with perverse and violent, I mean perverse and very, very violent. People get killed, maimed, tortured, raped, stabbed, cut, eating, stabbed, and everything else by bloody, smiling people. It's insane, and what's more, it's scary. The film has a bit of a zombie vibe at first, but unlike you've seen before, these people are still alive and human per se, but damn, it's as if they combined the fast zombies from other movies with ultra-violence and horror. It's very well done and has that harsh nihilistic feel that most Asian horror films have. You can find an allegory in there about the COVID pandemic if you want, and the fact many people were against the mask and quarantine mandates, but it's clear in the movie that when a devastating disease hits the world, there will be nothing you can do to stop it. The acting and gore is well done, and at the end I had to release a sigh about what I just saw. That's the hallmark of a good movie, an unexpectedly great film, especially for the genre and subject matter. Chilling. Trilogy of Terror is a 1975 anthology movie that promises you to give you terror. Yes, you will be left frightened in your seat shitting your pants. If you're a 5-year-old, this movie, as anthologies do, is split up in 3 separate stories, 3 TV-length episodes so to speak. I never got the appeal of anthology films. They're just TV shows that wanna be movies, even if they are TV movies. Bunch of posers. Anyways, the lovely Karen Black plays the main role in all 3 stories, of which the first, she's a seductive college professor who gets involved with a student and becomes his slave. Or does she? The second one, she plays a tormented frigid sister who claims to be victimized at every turn by her evil sex fiend sibling. Or is she? And the third, most famous part of the Trilogy of Terror, she's a solitary woman who gets a package dumped at her door. That package contains a cursed Zulu doll which turns out to be more of a challenge than she would have expected. All 3 of these stories are very simple and avid viewers like myself can see the plot twist from a mile away. Karen Black's charisma, however, saves the first 2 parts of the film, after which you will be treated to the one you were waiting for. The Zulu doll part is iconic and haunts many children of the 80s till this day. It's not particularly groundbreaking or intellectually challenging, but it's good fun. It was so much fun even though that Zulu doll got used in multiple movies afterwards. It didn't become a new Chucky, but it had every right to have become one. Maybe a woke reboot will give us so-called fans this, or would a raging Zulu fetish doll with a bone through its nose and all kinds of other characteristics be deemed too problematic? Not for me, that's for sure. And if you liked this movie, it wouldn't be for you either. Check that. Trilogy of Terror 2 is the sequel to Trilogy of Terror, which graced TV channels and VHS stores nearly 2 decades before. The creators of this flick must have thought that what isn't broken should not be fixed, so this once again is an anthology film. And once again, it features the Zulu fetish doll in the 3rd act. And Karen Black, she gets a cameo too. The first part of the film tells the story of 2 lovers who are trying to get the rich husband of the lusty-busty wife to croak. When he eventually does, they are arranging the funeral, but wouldn't you have it that betrayal and pesty critters ruin the fun for all. In the second, a depressed mother tries to resurrect her son Bobby, who drowned, leaving her with sadness and guilt. Bobby returns but doesn't seem to be the nice kid he once was. Why do you think that is? The third and final part brings back the Zulu fetish doll, which gets dropped off at a museum after being found at a crime scene. The scientists in charge are asked to find out if there's forensic evidence on the doll, but soon find themselves becoming a victim of a crime as well. The perpetrator, a crazed and cursed Zulu doll with a knack for blood and killing. This being a 90s product, it has the familiar cheesy look and feel we all know and kinda love. The stories themselves are take it or leave it. The graveyard rats are mediocre at best, whereas Bobby is chock full of cliché copyright S. He who kills pretty much retells the Zulu plot of the previous movie but in a different setting. All in all, this remake, created by the same director, is a pretty lazy one. It's good for people who never saw the first one, but that's about it. The Zulu fetish one is once again the most iconic, but again, just the same in a different coat. Slightly disappointing, but I didn't really expect anything more in the first place. Check that. Ooga Booga is a 2013 horror film with an interesting connection to an older horror film, but more of that later. An African American is brutally shot and killed by a bunch of corrupt cops during a straightforward trip to the store. His soul, however, is transported into a scary little Zulu fetish doll that is pretty much the same puppet from the Trilogy of Terror movies from 1975 and 96. And so this little puppet vows revenge on those who killed them and to get back to his big-titted girlfriend. Ooga Booga very much is a love letter to the Trilogy of Terror movie, as well as Karen Black, who not only starred in those movies but also stars in this one. Her character is even named after a character from one of her other movies, whereas the Trilogy of Terror movies were but anthology films that only featured a third of film with the murderous Zulu doll. This movie weaves a whole story around it. It's done in a typical indie fashion with some awful acting and questionable cinematography, but you can tell that the people poured their heart and soul into this, and this makes it work in my book. There are some extremely cheesy moments in but also some hilarious doozies. There's the obligatory nudity and a couple of slightly disturbing sex scenes. Plenty of violence and some gore. With a movie named Ooga Booga, you know exactly what you're gonna get, and anyone who thinks he's gonna get more is quite frankly not of his right mind. Personally, I expected more of Trilogy of Terror, which I vaguely remembered from my childhood and thus hadn't seen fully before watching this. Ooga Booga gave me just what I expected and a little bit more. Good for those people who enjoy some good campy B-movie horror. Check that. In Hypochondriac, a young Hispanic gay Potter's mother pops back up, after which he has to deal with recurring flashes of a traumatic past. As the episodes continue to manifest, it has an effect on his relationships, his work, his life, and more so, his sanity. That's the simple premise of a very simple movie about a man slowly losing his sanity. The reasons why are vaguely explained in the film via hallucination and flashbacks, but offers enough mystery to try to find out what the problem actually is. The man character is the typical submissive gay man, so there's nothing new in regard to how the relationship with his companion gets portrayed. The rest is the age-old Oedipus complex combined with some strange tale about wolves and masks. Hypochondriac would be a more interesting movie if it dealt with something more strange than merely some kind of childhood trauma, but I guess that would place this film firmly in the horror genre, and that is something this movie does not attempt to do. In the long run, this is a very forgetful movie and there's not really much to say about it. Great for the woke crowd. The rest of us can do other things with their time. Check that.